Thank you.
So shall we?
Yeah, please.
Hello and welcome to this post-policy press conference. With us today we have Governor Shri Shaktikant Das, Deputy Governor Shri M.K. Jain, Dr. Michael D. Patra, Shri M. Rajeshwar Rao, Shri T. Ravi Shankar, and we have Executive Directors Dr. O.P. Mal and Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, along with my colleague Monish Kapoor. I welcome all of you for this press conference. And without much ado, let me begin by inviting Governor to make opening remarks, and then we will go by, taking your questions one by one. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Yogesh. By way of opening remarks, I have 6 points to make. The first point is that the rate action this time, it is obviously a pause in rate action in this meeting of the MPC. Future action will depend on the evolving situation. Number 2, headline inflation has eased, so also all its components. But there is no room for complacency. The MPC remains resolutely focused on 4% inflation target in the interest of sustainable growth. Number 3, the Indian economy presents a story of resilience with macroeconomic and financial stability. Prospects for growth are steadily improving and becoming broad-based. Number 4, healthy twin balance sheets of banks and corporates also augur well for GDP growth. 5, the external sector is eminently viable as reflected in the current account deficit situation, stability of the Indian rupee, and build-up of forex reserves. Number 6, RBI's liquidity management will be nimble and two-sided as per requirement and as demonstrated in our recent actions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll begin the press conference by inviting Shri Jeevan Bhas for asking his question.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, जीवन हियर फ्रॉम आकाशवाणी. सर, हम ये जानना चाहते कि सीबीडीसी का पब्लिक लॉन्च कब तक हो पाएगा और आम आदमी कब तक सीबीडीसी यूज़ कर पाएंगे?
आई थिंक डिप्टी गवर्नर रवि शंकर आप रिप्लाई करें.
थैंक यू गवर्नर. हम कोई स्पेसिफिक डेट माइंड में रख के अभी प्लान नहीं कर रहे हैं. जैसे कि पहले भी बोल चुके हैं, ये ग्रेजुअल रहेगा, कैलिब्रेटेड रहेगी, क्योंकि हम उसका इम्पैक्ट एसेस करते हुए लर्न एज वी गो, जैसे बोलते हैं अंग्रेजी में, वैसे करते हुए आगे बढ़ेंगे. अभी फ़िलहाल अभी का प्लान ये है कि बाय एंड जून 1 मिलियन कस्टमर्स होना चाहिए हमारे लिए. और दूसरा एक चीज़ हम अभी प्लान कर रहे हैं, यूपीआई के साथ उसका क्यूआर कोड इंटरऑपरेबल कर लेंगे.
धन्यवाद सर. Now I move to Financial Express, Piyush Shukla.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you, Yogi sir, for taking the question.
Little louder, please.
Yeah. Am I audible better? Yeah. Sir, just wanted your perspective on SBI moving the Supreme Court seeking clarification on fraud classification. The Supreme Court had issued some notice regarding that. So is the RBI, because some of the banks have stopped marking accounts as fraud, they are waiting for more clarity from the RBI. So is the RBI going to issue a detailed circular in this regard on fraud classification? Separately, sir, you had said that, the foreign countries with excess rupee can invest in GSEC and T-bills. So actually, what is the amount that has been invested by foreign countries in this?
You see, under this rupee Vostro account, the international settlement of trade in rupee through the arrangement of rupee Vostro accounts, the process has already started. As regards investment in Indian securities or bonds, etc., naturally, being the first time, the central banks as well as the banks on the other side, through discussions, bilateral discussions, they are seeking some further clarity. It is under discussion with them, and we expect the process to begin soon. With regard to fraud classification, I would request Deputy Governor Jain to please take that question.
Thanks, Governor. As you are aware that the Supreme Court has given its judgment that a natural justice has to be provided to the borrower before declaring the fraud. And subsequently, SBI filed the review petition, and there basically, Supreme Court has clarified that there is no need for giving a personal hearing, while they are allowing to file a review petition for the remaining part of the SBI. So we are reviewing the entire guidelines on the fraud and in consultation with various stakeholders, and we will come out with our guidelines very shortly. But nevertheless, the Supreme Court judgment is applicable to all the regulated entities irrespective of RBI's guidelines.
So by when can we expect the circular to come out?
Very shortly.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Lata Venkatesh from CNBC TV18.
So, Yogesh said everybody had one question, so don't count that in my quota. This is all the details on 2,000 rupee notes. How much has come back so far? How much of it was exchanged and how much of it came as deposits? And then I'll ask my MPC question.
Oh, it's a prelude.
So this is not
I
part
thought
of
many
it.
others wanted to ask this question, so you have preempted that. Now, so far as 2,000 rupee banknotes are concerned, you would recall that we had said as on 31st March 31st March this year, totally 3,62,000 crore notes, 2,000 rupee notes were in circulation. After the announcement that we made, totally so far about 1,80,000 crores, 1.8 lakh crores of 2,000 rupee notes have come back. And this is roughly about 50% of the 2,000 notes which were in circulation on 31st March. So 50%, with reference to that number, 50% has come back after our announcement. And so far as the, there has been question about how much of exchange, how much of deposits, that figure needs a lot of reconciliation because we find that there is some amount of overlap in reporting. So we want to avoid any possibility of double counting. So we are reconciling the figures. But broadly on a provisional basis, I can say that about 85% of the 2,000 rupee notes are coming back as deposits into bank accounts. And let me also take this opportunity to say that this is, more or less, this is in line with our expectations. And the good thing is that there has not been any rush in any of the banks. Going forward, I would, through you, appeal to everyone not to rush or not to go to the bank in a panic. Go at whenever you are free, aram se jaiye. But at the same time, one more request. Generally, the habit is, we do things at the last moment. So please avoid last minute rush in the last 10-15 days of September. Wider dissemination के लिए अगर मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहूँ तो बोलना चाहूँगा दो शब्द कि जैसे मैंने पहले 2 हफ्ते पहले मैंने कहा था कि आप आराम से जब भी आपको टाइम हो आप जाके एक्सचेंज कर दीजिए या आप 2,000 रुपी नोट अपने अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट कर दीजिए. कोई जल्दबाजी करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. करेंसी हमारे पास बहुत स्टॉक से, कोई जल्दबाजी की ज़रूरत नहीं है. आराम से आपके सुविधा के अनुसार आप उसको डिपॉजिट करिए या एक्सचेंज करिए. बट उसके साथ साथ मैं ये भी कहना चाहूँगा कि 30 सितंबर मतलब वो लास्ट जो 10-15 दिन होता है 30 सितंबर से पहले, उस वक्त किसी तरह की मतलब सडन पैनिक रश क्रिएट मत करिए. आराम से अभी तो बहुत टाइम है, उसके अंदर आप आपके टाइम के हिसाब से जब भी आपको सुविधा हो रहा है तो आप उसको डिपॉजिट कर दीजिए या एक्सचेंज कर दीजिए. थैंक यू.
So, my question is on liquidity. The way the Reserve Bank, there seems to be a greater willingness to do VRRs, that is removal of liquidity, and a slight hesitation in doing repo auctions, which is giving liquidity. So from that, should we understand that RBI would be happier if the weighted average call rate lay between 6.5 and 6.75 I mean, the comfort is more if it is higher and not as much when it is lower. And considering that banks also have been hesitant to, I mean, you say that they are very cautious about giving you money in VRRR. Will you look for more enduring ways like, you know, an OMO purchase or something like that?
You see, our target of monetary policy, as you know, is 6.5% is the policy repo rate. And typically, our expectation is that, and what we would like to see is that the overnight call rates are also aligned to 6.5%. Beyond that, it is a function of day-to-day fluctuation or, you know, week-to-week fluctuation in the overall liquidity situation. So we expect and we would like the overnight call rates to be aligned with 6.5% policy rate. Now, whether there is a preference for VRR or VRRR, that is variable rate repo auction or a reverse repo auction, that depends on the prevailing situation in the market. And we, as I said, we will remain very flexible. I mean, we will remain very nimble. We will act swiftly as we have done over the last 4 days. We'll remain nimble. We will remain flexible. And I have also said in my statement that, you know, I just mentioned it in my opening remarks here, that we will do two-sided operations as per requirement. Anything else you would like to add? No.
Other than repo, since you know, in the VRRRs, the banks have been cautious, will you look for other instruments?
No, I think, you know, that as and when we will decide, you will know. But banks have been cautious, and let me make also one point. I think there is still some amount of liquidity sitting there. When we say banks are cautious, let us remember that through the VRRR auctions, which we have done, and some of it is maturing today, till yesterday, about 1,50,000 crores of rupees 1,50,000 crores have been mopped up through VRRR operations.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Govardhan Rangan from Economic Times.
Thank you. So again, on the liquidity issue, so there is a feeling that the entire liquidity dynamics has changed in the last few months of the quarter because of the 24/7 payments. So there's a feeling that 1% of NDTL that used to be a case, that itself may have to be relooked at. So, and you also mentioned in your speech that banks are cautious. So there seems to be a kind of so liquidity control. How do you address it? Is there a need for a policy overall or need to relook at that?
I would request
Thank
Deputy
you.
Governor Michael Patra to take that question.
Yeah, it's true that there are payments transaction going through till the middle of the night. But as banks get used to this, the liquidity is balancing out. If you saw, there was a lot of tightness till the middle of May. But after that, there has been an easing of liquidity. So banks are slowly getting used to that transactions coming in late. And in any case, after 5:30, we have standing windows open and an ASISO facility, which will sweep in and sweep out. So banks are not inconvenienced by it.
So just on that, so because the banks are getting used to it, there's also a feeling that neutral liquidity itself will be a kind of a surplus of 60,000 crores or 70,000 crores. The definition of neutral itself is getting so redefined. Is that the case?
No, we abandoned that quantitative ceiling. Right now, we look at the call money rate and look at it to get aligned with the repo rate. As soon as it gets aligned, we feel its liquidity is balanced out.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Manojit Saha from Business Standard.
Thank you. Last evening also RBI released a list of online forex platforms which are unauthorized. Earlier there was a list also, but those applications are still there in the Google Play Store and all. So is there any further steps RBI is contemplating to curb those issues?
I think Dr. Patra, you can take that question.
Yeah. So Manojit, you're right that we issued a list yesterday. So there is actually a two-pronged approach to this. One is to build up levels of awareness. And for that purpose, RBI not only issues those lists which say unauthorized, but we also give you a list of authorized platforms. The other thing that we do is we interact very closely with the enforcement agencies, the ministries like Information Technology and Finance. And they are taking action as an ongoing basis. You know, already we are hearing of various platforms being raided and their assets seized, so action is taking place there. The third line of action should be the tech companies which are uploading those mobile apps should apply caution and ensure that what they are uploading is by the laws of the land.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Swati Khandelwal from Z Business.
थैंक यू योगेश सर पिछले पॉलिसी से इस पॉलिसी में ऑफ कोर्स 2000 रुपए का नोट वाज अ बिग मूव एवरीबडी वाज टेकन बाय सरप्राइज आगे जिस तरह से ऑफ कोर्स आपने उस पर रिस्पॉन्ड किया कि किस तरीके का उस पर आपको रिस्पांस मिला है लेकिन सवाल ये है कि मार्केट में लोग जो एंड ये लोगों के बिहाफ पे सर लॉट ऑफ आवर कंज्यूमर्स आर पीपल हु वॉच आरबीआई 1000 रुपए का नोट इशू करेगा या 500 रुपीज़ के साथ भी ऐसा हो सकता है एंड इट्स अ वैलिड क्वेश्चन सर पीपल हैव दैट इन देयर माइंड्स तो आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे उन लोगों को जिनके ये सवाल हैं उनको क्या करना चाहिए क्या इस पर आरबीआई का ऐसा कुछ विचार है ऐसा कुछ सोच है व्हाट इज योर रिस्पांस ऑन दैट
आपने कहा कि 1000 रुपया नोट इंट्रोड्यूस होगा क्या 500 रुपया नोट को विथड्रॉ करेंगे क्या
जी
इस सारे मामले में मेरे पास तो कोई जानकारी नहीं है और ऐसा भी आज के तारीख में और ऐसा भी कोई थिंकिंग नहीं है
ओके तो दैट्स
सो देयरफॉर किसी तरह की स्पेकुलेशन मार्केट में किसी तरह का स्पेकुलेशन ना किया जाए मैं आपके माध्यम से सारे लोगों को जनरल पब्लिक को कहना चाहता हूं कि किसी तरह का स्पेकुलेशन मत करिए अभी ये जो आप कह रहे हैं मैंने कहा कि मेरे पास जानकारी नहीं है और ऐसा कोई आइडिया भी नहीं है
वंडरफुल थैंक यू सर ये इंपॉर्टेंट क्लैरिफिकेशन है और अब ईसीएल पे सर सवाल है क्योंकि यहाँ पर एक्सपेक्टेड क्रेडिट लॉसेस को लेकर जो थॉट प्रोसेस है उस पर ये समझ में आ रहा है कि बैंक्स ऐसा सोच रहे हैं कि 30 जून से ये लागू हो जाएगा क्या ये सही है इस पर एक्चुअली इस वक्त सिचुएशन क्या है उस पर आप अपडेट दीजिए एंड व्हाट इज द फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्रीज व्यू ऑन इट सर क्योंकि शायद वहाँ पर कुछ अभी सहमति नहीं बनी है बिटवीन आरबीआई एंड फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री इज दैट करेक्ट और नॉट
अब आरबीआई और फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के बाद क्या हो रहा है तो मेरे को इवन आई एम नॉट अवेयर बट आई थिंक लेट डिप्टी गवर्नर राजेश्वर राव टेक दैट क्वेश्चन
No, I think the issue we have received what you call comments from all the concerned stakeholders. The comments are still being evaluated. Some more refinements and work is done. So at this point in time, I don't think it's correct to infer that 30th June would be the date when it's going to be launched. That is an absolutely incorrect assumption. I will stop it with that.
No. You see, आप देखिए, you look at our track record. हमारा ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड क्या रहा है पिछले कई सालों में हम टाइम देते हैं कंप्लायंस के लिए ये नहीं कि आज एक अनाउंस कर दिया और कल से आप ये रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइंस इंट्रोड्यूस करिए ईसीएल का इम्पैक्ट जो है वो बैंकों को टाइम देना चाहिए तो वी विल गिव देम सफिशिएंट टाइम फॉर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन और आप अगर देखेंगे पिछले कई सालों में जब भी हम एक नए रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइन इशू करते हैं तो टाइम देते हैं कि फलाना तारीख से आप इंट्रोड्यूस करिए तो इसीलिए ये ईसीएल के बारे में भी मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि कोई तरह की मतलब देयर इज नो नीड टू क्रिएट एनी पैनिक और एनीथिंग द कमेंट्स हैव बीन रिसीव्ड एज द डिप्टी गवर्नर has pointed out comments have been received they are under examination and we'll issue the circular but we are mindful of the fact that the banks will need some time to implement it
all right thank you
no we have assessed it but let me not go into that and it's quite manageable limits that's per our assessment but let's leave it at that
thank you sirs I'll move on to Mr. Anup Roy from Bloomberg.
Thank you, sir. Sir, why not change the stance to neutral? And have you pivoted? Because last time you stressed that this is a pause, not a pivot, but this time you didn't mention that. So should we interpret it as pivot?
I would mention only if there is a change. So it is a pause in this meeting of the MPC. And I have not said anything about the pivot. So whatever I said in the last meeting, that it's not a pivot, I reiterate that. Anything you want to add further? on the change of stance, etc.?
Sir,
Yeah,
I'll
sir,
move on to... We'll come back to you. We'll move on to Mr. Ankur Mishra from ET Now.
Michael.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. Good afternoon, Governor. I want to ask regarding the same question only regarding the stance. आपने अपने जो speech में sir last में बोला that often it is said that in the end it becomes little difficult, and then hence you have mentioned that future actions will be based on evolving situations. But as per your assessment only, you have said that situation has improved from last time, be it indicators or other things. So again, how should we infer that, not mentioning of exact word of pivot, it's not, I mean, you have mentioned, but you believe that it is, we are much closer to the change in stance than we were last time?
You see, I have said in my statement, and that is the MPC's view also, that our target is 4%. So our effort will be also to align all our actions to move towards that target and reach the target. So it will therefore depend on the evolving situation. To say anything more than that, given the kind of uncertainties which still persist, and I have listed them out in my statement. So given that kind of uncertainties, to say anything other than what I have said, that our endeavor is to align the inflation target to 4%, we will move towards 4%, and we will be very watchful of the evolving situation and modulate our action suitably. To say anything more than that at this stage is not desirable. And last year also, about a year ago, we have said that given the high uncertainty which is prevailing all over, not just in India, I mean, particularly in the external sector, and especially when we are in a tightening cycle, it's not desirable to give any forward guidance because that may create, expectations which may not be aligned with our thinking or our action. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Swati Bhatt from Reuters.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. So I had a two-part question. I mean, one is, apart from a slowdown in growth, what would be the other factors that would, prompt the MPC to start cutting rates? Is there a level of real rate which will make it restrictive for the economy to keep growing? That's one. And there are expectations that the Fed could continue to keep hiking rates. So is RBI comfortable with a rising interest rate differential with the Fed? Thank you.
I'll ask Deputy Governor Dr. Patra to reply that question, but just one point I would like to mention, that our monetary policy actions, as I have been saying time and again, are determined primarily by the domestic conditions. We do not look at the action of other central banks to determine our actions. But yes, we do watch what other central banks are doing because that will have an impact on the global financial situation, the financial sector situation on currency markets and other aspects. But our actions are determined primarily by our domestic factors. You would like to take? Yeah.
So we have described to you what exactly is our comfort zone. And that is that when inflation aligns with a target and growth returns to potential after the shock it received from the pandemic. Both are work in progress. There is a little better progress on the growth front. Inflation is also progressing towards our goal, but not as fast as growth is normalizing. So we'll look at both to take the next step.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Mayur Shetty from Times of India.
Thank you, Yogesh. Governor, recently the Kannungo committee had submitted that recommendation on customer service standards. So I wanted to know how would these standards be enforced? And in that context, there were two incidents that videos which were circulating in social media. One was of a bank manager pushing the staff to sell insurance policies instead of the need-based selling that RBI requires. And the other is of a regulated entity saying that if people do not want to be disturbed, they should not, if they want to opt out of our calls, then they should not come back for loans in future. So whether such issues would get addressed in future.
Let me respond about the Kanungo's committee report. We have put it out on our website for public comments. By and large, this committee basically has focused on adequacy of regulatory and institutional framework, the customer experience, efficacy of grievance redressal, extent of customer education and awareness. These are the 5 areas where they have focused, and we will wait for the public comments, and then we will decide what can be implemented, what cannot be implemented. On the calls, basically, as far as recovery agents is concerned, we have already issued our guidelines, and we have put out our code that what they have to follow for the recovery agents. For the marketing call, this is the decision of the individual banks, and the TRI has to really look into if there is a do not registry done by any customers. But nevertheless, this issue which you have brought it out, we will examine it separately.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Gopika Gopakumar from the Mint.
So again, a two-part question. First is on the liquidity. At the time of demonetization, RBI had introduced an incremental CRR. Do you think that is required at this point in time? And secondly, do you think after SEBI, will RBI also look at coming out with regulations on financial influencers?
No, so far as financial influencers are concerned, we have no such thinking. SEBI is already dealing with it, so in RBI we have no such thinking to issue. Domestic macroeconomic fundamentals are strengthening. Economic activity is exhibiting resilience. Inflation has moderated. The current account deficit has narrowed, and foreign exchange reserves are comfortable. Fiscal consolidation is also ongoing. The Indian banking system remains